Hi, I'm Portee, fashion and lifestyle journalist and editor of Zayla magazine. I've always been interested in biographies and in the stories of people's lives, basically listening to what stirs their souls. Welcome to the Soulful side of life, where I let you in on some of my conversations with inspiring people from around the world in fashion, faith, entertainment, music, and entrepreneurship. These are conversations that stir the soul about people's journeys, about the ups and downs of life, and how they have overcome certain situations. I hope that these episodes will inspire your life in some way, so enjoy over a cup of something hot or on your drive to work. This is the Soulful Side of Life and can be found on Spotify Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Keni Silva is a multi-talented media personality, philanthropist, film industry investor, woman empowerment activist and speaker, model, entrepreneur, and certified divorce coach. She was just honored by Orange County in California during Women's History Month in March. When she's not walking red carpets like Cannes, Venice, LACMA, or being featured for her fashion sensibility in Vogue, Women's Wear Daily, Daily Mail, and others, she's simply helping others. She sits on the board of the Children's Oncology Support Fund, and she supports Baby to Baby, AMFAR, and Visionary Women. I had the privilege of meeting Keni last year at the Aspen Snowball, and she was so kind and gracious when I needed to get a quote from her for my article. And this year, I saw her at the Snowball again, and we had the opportunity to have a conversation and chat just a little bit. And she's so kind and ever gracious and humble, and it's a blessing getting to meet her and know her a little bit. And I wanted to have her on the podcast to talk about her new book, Divorce as an Opportunity. It's a comprehensive guidebook empowering women to navigate divorce successfully and challenges the traditional narratives surrounding separation. And I read the book. Keni sent me a copy, and I found it just very helpful as a single person reading this book, because I feel like I was able to read it with total freedom and just totally absorbing the wisdom nuggets that she points out. I found out things I didn't know. And while, divorce is hard and most people don't want to go through it, there are wisdom nuggets that we need to be aware of when thinking about divorce and knowing how to navigate it sensibly. And that's what her book does. So enjoy this podcast episode with Keni Silva as she unpacks and she answers questions on topics related to divorce. Keni, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really enjoyed reading your book, and there's lots of wisdom nuggets there. And I realized as I got into it that it's not just a book about simply wanting divorce. It doesn't promote divorce. And I saw some of the comments that you got after you did Tamron Hall's show, and there were a couple of negative ones. And I'm like, Kenny didn't invent divorce. It's
Yes.
been around for millennia, like since ancient Mesopotamia. And through this book, you sensibly unpack how people should think about divorce, mainly women, um, but you dive into the things like there's a lot of wisdom nuggets, even for men in the book. And yeah, it's just a common sense guidebook on how to approach divorce. Before going into the book, my first question is, Yeah, what are the characteristics that somebody should look out for before dating? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Before dating?
Yeah.
Well, to me, it depends what you want from the relationship. If you just want to have a companion, or just, you're not looking into marriage and just want to have somebody you can travel with and have, time together, go into restaurants and enjoy your life, that's one thing. But if you actually looking for somebody that you want to start a family, I think it's very honest to ask a person on the first date if they're looking to have a family and kids, because before you even start the relationship and you start falling in love, it's important to know if the other person have the same things that he wants, because you're going to spend all this time in getting to know another person, in forming feelings. And then at the end, he can tell you, well, I never wanted to have a family or get married or have children. So all that time is wasted. And I actually asked my ex-husband, we had a blind date, if he did wanted to have kids because he was much older. It was important for me. And I went on those dates when people said, you know what, I don't want to have any more kids, or I don't want this. And I wouldn't waste my time on going even on a second date. Why? To
Yeah.
me, time is everything, especially now with age. I realize, I always say this, you can make more money, you can buy more time, you cannot make more time. So giving yourself this illusion that maybe you will change somebody's mind, it doesn't really work most of the time. I mean, on occasion, yes, but if a person already been married or had kids, or even if he didn't, a lot of people these days, they don't want to get married, they don't want to have kids. But I think at least knowing that and then deciding for yourself if you still want to put your time and energy into that relationship, then it's up to you. But I think you have to have realistic expectations for, where it's going.
Yeah, that's true. I think, yeah, that because I before you would get into the heartache of divorce, knowing before dating what you're looking for and asking the right questions is key,
Yes.
so you don't have to entertain the thought of divorce one day. Um,
Exactly. And exactly like you said in the beginning, you know, when I was getting married, I wasn't looking for divorce. I'm not advocating for divorce, but I also believe that marriage is not a life sentence without parole. And if something went wrong or people just grew apart, there is a way out. There is, an option as a divorce, and it shouldn't be shameful. If you're at the job that you don't like, you can change that. The same thing with the marriage. It's the relationship with the signed paperwork. And I love relationship. I love, love. And I'm
yeah.
not advocating, but if you're at that point, I think it's important to know what to do. And it's important to know that it's not the end. And that's, all the book is about, how to navigate through divorce, and most importantly, start all over.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a common sense guidebook for sure. You write in the book that people don't want to do things that are hard. Thinking wisely about your soon to be marriage or your divorce is hard. Like thinking about the prenup stage and plan that's hard because you're having to think about if it ends and what you need to negotiate for yourself. Why must we go into the hard and give total attention to these areas that we don't want to think about?
Well, if you or your spouse decided that you actually do want to sign a prenuptial agreement, it is an uncomfortable topic that people sometimes afraid to talk about, especially I think money in general, talking about money and budgeting and expectations when one person wants from their life. It's a hard topic. And, no matter where, it's like, again, it's all like a job when you negotiate your salary. Sometimes uncomfortable. Sometimes you don't think you're worth it. Sometimes you just, you're scared. What if I say too much, that that person is, going to think something? But is, at the end of the day, it's essential. And I don't think it's very shameful to talk about those things. If anything, that's a grounds for family, because once you start having a family and you start having kids, you need to talk about these things.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, we do live in materialistic things where we have to buy things. We need money for, for essential living things.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Um, it's important to think about the hard, even while it's a good, maybe a good, happy relationship. Um,
I think changing perspective, that it's not hard. It's
Mhm.
just basics, So just reframing what it is. It's just getting, to know and be able to talk about it. It's normal. It shouldn't be anything, that's shameful. It shouldn't be, scary to talk about these things. It shouldn't be hard, because this is a part of our lives.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, as a single person reading the book, I feel it gave me a freedom to read it with a total open heart, because I can imagine for someone reading your book who's in a relationship where they know there are red flags and maybe they shouldn't move forward in the relationship. The book can be a challenge to read, and it will force you to confront some things. I think it would be great for people to read your book in singleness so that they can get this wisdom embedded into their souls with like this total surrender. Would you agree that it's helpful to have this knowledge before you're in a relationship?
I totally agree, because when I was writing the book, it wasn't just the people going through divorce or thinking about divorce. I think knowing things in advance, how they work, what the outcome can be, and preparing for it, I think it's just, it benefits anybody. Either you're thinking to get married, either you just starting your search for a relationship. I just think knowledge, no matter what it is, it's great, and you can never get enough of it. It's like doing a research about any project, no matter if you want to be a part of it or not. And especially marriage, divorce, it's a part of our lives. Relationship, you just have there's so many practical things that you don't have to get through divorce, like how to get emotional state of mind. You don't have to go through divorce. Just having a stressful, a challenging life situation, you can still implement those things. Or financial part, you don't have to go through divorce or being married. You still can implement those things, knowing your budget and knowing how to, how things work in life, how to financially be prepared. It's all, you can use it every day, no matter what stage of your life, or if your relationship, you're married.
Yeah, definitely. Over the weekend, in my YouTube, like what popped up was the title of this video of like, you shouldn't have your prenup discussion with your partner, in the room. Would you agree that one shouldn't, one shouldn't be in the prenup discussion that their partner is having with their lawyer? That, yeah, that they
I
should.
think it's so personal. I think some people are more open talking about it. I think others feel uncomfortable and they need the presence of the Lord just to mediate. I don't think there's a right or wrong, or I just think it's a comfort level for everybody. Some people do it one way, some people do it the other way. I'm not, I don't think there's a certain way it should be done. But I honestly, for me, I think how I would like first, like exactly like my ex-husband did. He talked to me first and he said, that's what I would like to do, because this is a relationship. This is communication. Communication is the most important thing in any relationship. Just to being able to say what you expect, what you want. And of course, after that, because it's a legal binding contract, that you do have to have attorneys. And if everybody can be in the same room afterwards and talk about it and negotiate, that comes much easier too.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I guess it depends on the couple. and
Exactly.
the kind of relationship they've got.
And
Um,
at the end of the day, the prenup is just about their marriage and life. So I think it's wonderful if, two people and their attorneys can be in the same room. Well, at the end, when you sign it, you are in the same room. You have to be together with your two attorneys to sign it. So, of course, I think it saves time even when you are negotiating. But the problem sometimes comes in when you both don't agree on something, then it becomes like a little, battlefield.
yeah, for sure. For sure. For someone getting into a relationship with the other person who has gone through a divorce already, are there certain questions that you should ask this a person that you're just starting to date about, maybe why did you get divorced? Like how early should you ask that? And should you bring that up for just so you could know, like, maybe you find out something that's surprising and you maybe don't want to continue the relationship. Maybe they have a
Well,
character flaw.
Well, I think we all, to me, for example, the most important thing if both people are divorced and they have children, it's of course the children situation or how many times they have kids, their schedule. Because once you divorce, and for me, I have my kids 50% of the time. So obviously, I'm not available full time. And if somebody has kids from their first marriage and they're under 18, that affects a lot the relationship because it's a dynamic that it's not just the two of you. Now you have kids involved. So, depending on their schedule, you might have less timing. Like that was important for me. That's why I never wanted to date guys with little kids because you becoming a part of their life, or you only have certain time that they have free for you. So that was important. It wasn't important why they got divorced because everybody relationship, it's not necessarily their character, it's two people together. So that's how I look at it. It's not always one person's fault, it's two people in, and you will never know the story, the real story.
Mm,
And of course with time, like the normal conversation, people open up and they say what happened, but you always have to understand it's their part of the story, and there is another part of the story, and then there is the truth. So I don't really look into it. If you love somebody and they've been married and maybe something happened, people change too. I believe actually in change. So I wouldn't. For me it was more important, like my situation with kids, and if the other person has kids and they're younger, that would be more of a deal breaker.
gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Do you think that all people need to make a prenup, even those who aren't rich, even like lower middle class? Or it's
I honestly, to be honest with you, I'm not a big prenup believer.
Mm.
Even I explain what it is, and I had one. And I believe in life that there is times when things can go really great, and there is times when things cannot really go good.
Mhm.
And I believe, yes, if you want to protect your assets from before, I think it's a great way. The prenup is a great way, but I don't think the prenup should dictate the marriage itself or how much you're going to get, because then you're living in this relationship without any expectations or putting full energy of building the family. It's like we work together, we do things together, because it's like, well, why would I do all these things? And if something happens, then it goes this way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, I would never, if I would get married again, I would say, listen, if you want to protect what was before, that's great, but for the future I want to be one partnership, because I
Mm,
believe in that. That's a family unit to me, and I don't care if it's going to go up or down. To me it's more about knowing that we trust each other, we there, until death do us part.
yeah. But do you think that a wealthy person would go for that versus marrying someone who has significantly less?
I think so, because they have nothing to lose. Because if they would just want to protect their assets from before,
Hmm.
then it's what it protects their assets from before. But going forwards, it's a family unit.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're
Because
saying.
especially for women, a lot of times men with money, they want their wife to be there full time, meaning a lot of times she stops working because they travel or they do something, so she does sacrifice a lot of things and having children. And so even maybe it's not a monetary investment to the family, but obviously if she was paid for that time working, or like all these other things, like if you have kids and the wife is working, so you have to pay for the babysitter. Somehow I think the society looks, when it's a marriage and woman puts her time into raising the family, raising kids, it's free. She should
Yeah.
just do it because it's an obligation of hers.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, after divorce, man has to get babysitters, they have to get housekeepers, they have to get drivers for their kids, and they're willing to pay for all that.
Yeah.
And that's what, that, but somehow if you're a wife, everything goes. And I'm not talking about really financially, but we do, if we decide that and a man has money, most of the people that I know, the wives are stay-at-home wives,
Right.
but somehow it's not acknowledged that they're putting something into their family, which is not true. Gives the best time of her life. She gives her energy and sources. And a lot of time, if you look, the men actually do so much better being married, because they
Hmm.
have that strength and self and safety at home when they come in, and all that support and love and everything is perfect.
I think that that's probably one of the number one reasons why women ask for a divorce. And isn't the statistic 70% of women ask
Yes.
for the divorce because they're not getting help with the
Yes.
kids? And it's 90% of educated women who are asking for the divorce. And maybe they just feel like I can do this by myself and hire a nanny and have so much more. I won't feel so resentful towards my husband. I'd rather just do it all by myself and hire a nanny versus this man who isn't helping with half the at-home load.
I
Um,
think the more highly educated woman, they just know they were doing all that, finishing college, striving to get a job and career, and then they realize that, okay, well, I didn't do this, I
mhm.
put it on hold, or maybe, and I did all this, but they don't feel appreciated. And a lot of times they feel that the fulfillment is not there, because I love being a mom. I would never, I always wanted to have children, but it's not just, I'm not just a mother. I want to be fulfilled personally too,
Yeah,
having a career or achieve different things. And a lot of times, because they've been stay-at-home moms, they're in this pattern of people expecting them to do things, their husbands expect, and sometimes it's really hard to get out and be like, what, I actually want to go and do something for myself.
yeah,
And it's the situation they're in, and a lot of times husbands are not supporting of them, because they have a fear of losing the wife. If she's going to go start making money, she might realize she doesn't need all this, and she
mm.
might leave.
Well, she's gonna leave if you're not helping in the home too, helping carry the load.
I
Um,
think for a lot of women, it's not just helping the carry the load, it's being
appreciation.
appreciated for
Yeah,
what she does.
yeah,
That's a lot of times the biggest thing, because again, as I said, a lot of times what women do, and sleepless nights and carrying the baby, nobody thinks of it as something extraordinary, but it is, you
yeah,
know and we don't feel validated that we actually are doing a lot of things.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And it probably also just it wearies women down. Um it affects your mental health when you're not
Yes.
appreciated, and you just
Of
get
course. Well,
tired.
imagine you go to work and your work is 9 to 5, and then you come home and you relax, right? But you know your work, your problems related to work is all at work. You don't bring anything to the house. But a
Mhm.
woman doesn't have that. She works 24 hours. There's
Mhm.
no there's no way for her to go somewhere to be, decompress and distress and just to be like, oh my God, that's it, my job is done. I can just have 2 hours to myself. It doesn't work like this, as
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because it's like kids and this and a husband and cooking and cleaning. And maybe it's not as hard as, being a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, but it's still the same amount of stress,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes, for sure. Kids are work. I mean, it's a lot to keep a home going.
Well, if you think, a lot of people in the United States have therapy. So a mother is a therapist to everybody, her children, her husband. It's another part of nobody thinks about. It's not just cooking, cleaning, and driving everybody to everywhere. It's a safety space she creates.
Yeah.
Talking to her husband about his stressful day, talking to her kids about their stressful day. It's a therapy all the time that she provides.
I think it's good if women can delay family and out of university or high school, go work a little and go travel and see the world and have your own apartment and your own life, just so you can live a little before starting the family life. Maybe you don't feel as unappreciated when you've had that. Of course, you still want your husband to
Yeah.
appreciate what you do, but there's nothing like having that independence. Because
Yeah.
I look at my high school friends who got married right out of high school or right out of college, and maybe they've got kids now that are 10, 11, 12, and they say to me, "Wow, you get to travel, you get to do all these things." And yes, it is a blessing, but I feel like they're a little bit sad somehow that they didn't get to live a little. And I don't know if they've got plans to start a business or when the kids get older, but I think it's helpful if you can have some independence.
I think, it all depends on the relationship. Like me and my ex-husband, we traveled a lot. We traveled the world together with kids, without kids. We always, like for us, it was very important to take 2 trips a year, just me and him,
Mhm.
without the kids, just to reconnect and see the world. I think that's what I'm saying. Communication is the key. A lot of times women don't really know what they want, or, having the right partner who will be like, you know what, like, what do you want? And she will say, I feel a little lost, maybe I want to go get a job. And he will totally support her and say, okay, well, let's find some help, for it. That's why I think it's so important to be able to communicate to your partner what you want. But for that, you have to know what you want, to create that perfect life together, because it's all doable. It's not, I don't think there is a right time before or after, if you work or if you're not, because you can all do it during, your marriage. And I know couples who've done amazingly, but it's an open communication and it's a willingness for two people to, to support each other in everything, and not to be like, okay, well, you do this and you do that. It's both. I think that's why it's important to find a person who has the same values, who look at life, who look at raising kids the same way you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna take your word for it because I've not been married and I don't know what it means to communicate with a partner in that way. So I'm gonna trust what you're saying there. Um, I had a friend from college. She's married the guy now, but when they were dating, he wanted her to sign this prenup, which I felt was totally unreasonable. And I suggested to her, okay, this is what he wants you to sign, I would take that to a lawyer in your state and ask them what they think of it and what you would get out of it should the relationship not last. Do you suggest to people, men and women alike, to employ a divorce coach or, yeah, divorce coach, or to speak to somebody who would have knowledge on a, say, like a prenup that the partner is wanting you to sign?
Well, yes, absolutely, because prenup is a binding contract and an attorney should review it and help you understand. And to be honest with you, most of the time, if you don't have representation, depends on the state, I would imagine, but if you don't have representation on signing, that prenup is actually void
Mhm.
because you if you sign a piece of paper you don't really understand, and his attorney should know better that they should advise you to get. Yes, you can sign it, but then it becomes, once divorce comes, it's very easily, to say like, listen, like I had no idea what I signed. And that's why most of the time advise to go get a legal counsel on what is there and be present at the signing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think everything in life that requires, something signing, that especially that can affect you in the long run and should be reviewed by an attorney.
Yeah. It's wise
It's
because,
just
yeah.
why exactly.
Yeah, because you don't your life could be greatly affected. Um,
Yes. And there is so many terms that, we don't understand what it means.
I felt like in my friend's case, but if you have low self-esteem, you're willing to sign something, especially if you feel like you're not going to be able to get a husband down the road. I think some women or even men can feel I'm not good looking enough, so I've got to grab on to this person that's there, or it's not going to happen for me. And you can't think like that. You have to be empowered, self-empowered to look after yourself.
Well, yes, I definitely agree that fear of losing something is the number one thing why people do things. And, that's again going to that hard or uncomfortable situation where, you can actually avoid, to me personally, maybe, if you look at this, and relationship already starts with this fear base that you're just afraid to say what it is. I don't think it's a great sign in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so two last questions. What are you telling your kids about dating and relationships? What do you teach them?
Well, right now my daughter is 16 and my son is 13, so he's
Oh,
not, they're
speak about it.
a
Yeah.
little bit too young. And my daughter is at the age where I tell her, like at your age, to be honest with you, it's too early to think about like a long-term goal of finding a soulmate or finding a partner. So just have fun. It's like you're too young. But I guess when they're going to be a little bit older to start thinking about it. And honestly, you never know. It's like even in her 20s, I want her to find a partner for my daughter who will respect her, who will support her, and who will be there for her. Because a lot of times, these days, especially, I feel like relationship starts because people are afraid to be alone and they
Mhm.
just want to be with somebody of the loneliness. But I feel like when you know yourself and your life is great and beautiful, you will meet that special person one day or another. And you don't have to be in a relationship that just because you're afraid to be alone or everybody else has a boyfriend and you want to have a boyfriend. I think you really have to understand why you want to be in a relationship and who you want to be with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Last question. You're dating a well-known and influential man. What does he think about your book?
He totally supports me. The same thing. I came to my ex-husband and I said, I will write this book out
Mm,
of respect because we have an amazing relationship. And I believe, in it didn't work out, but I have so much respect for him. He has so much respect for me. So I told him, I said, it's not a memoir, it's a guide. If you ever have any questions or somebody says something, I want you to come to me. And he gave me my blessing. The same thing with Mohammed. He supports me in what I do because he sees a great need in it, helping women or men to
mhm.
guide them through it and to give them hope that, hey, there you can start all over.
Yeah, that's great to have the support of both of these men behind your book.
Yes. No, I'm very grateful for that. And with Mohammed, he lets me fly high, always guiding me, but he never cuts my wings. And I think to me, it's one of the most important thing in relationship.
Oh, that is amazing. Yes, for sure. That support for both people to give each other. Um, yeah, I'm really grateful I met you and that I got to read your book because I don't know, it just really helped me in singleness and not being dating anyone to appreciate and totally just absorb the wisdom in the book
Thank you.
without having any kind of feeling of, oh my gosh, maybe I need to get out of my relationship because I know it's not good. I just had a freedom in reading it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.